Gambia Armed Forces storm health facilities to donate blood. Albinos in Nigeria strive to overcome stigma and discrimination. Saudi Arabia limits pilgrimage to only 60,000 of its citizens amid COVID-19. This and more coming on the World Today newscast. Hello, this is the World Today newscast with me, Mariama Cham, and thanks for joining us. Now, as health centers continue to cry of insufficient blood supply, the Gambia Armed Forces mobilized troops to various facilities in observance of the World Blood Donor Day. The day is set aside by the World Health Organization to raise global awareness of the need for safe blood and of the critical contributions of donors. Over 200 personnel of the Gambia Armed Forces decided to donate to the Carnifon General Hospital in order to save lives. Details of that in this report. The Gambia Armed Forces blood donation drive took place in all major health centers and hospitals across the country. While the opening ceremony was observed at the Carnifon General Hospital with more than 200 soldiers as donors, similar exercises were ongoing in other facilities, including the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital in Banjul, Buyam in the West Coast, Farafenni in the North, and Basay in the Upper River regions. The intervention is designed to surmount instances of shortage of blood as a major challenge in the health delivery system, resulting in lives lost. Speaking ahead of the blood donation drive on Monday morning, Deputy Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Major General Mohamed Ocham, considered the blood donation as a norm to the Army. He underlined the humanitarian aspect of saving lives, especially at a time when the COVID-19 is posing additional complexities in health service delivery.
As part of this year's activities marking the day, the Gambia Armed Forces is joining the rest of the world to commemorate the day by donating blood to all government health facilities across the country. This patriotic and humanitarian gesture is aimed at complementing the efforts of the Ministry of Health, Social Welfare in ensuring adequate supply of blood to Gambians, particularly during these years of COVID-19 pandemic. Consequently, officers, soldiers, and ratings of the Gambia Armed Forces in all military installations, from Banjul to Basse, would voluntarily donate blood to ensure individuals and communities have access to safe and quality blood and blood products in the normal and emergency situations they face.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Carnifon General Hospital, Keba Mane, emphasized the importance of blood donation in saving the lives of millions of patients across the globe. He thanked the Gambia Armed Forces for the regular and punctual response to the needs of health facilities in the country.
Safe blood and blood products and their safe transfusion forms an integral part of public health care service delivery. They save millions of lives and improve the health and quality of life of many patients daily around the world. The need for blood and blood products is universal, but access to safe blood and blood products for all those needing it is not. It varies greatly across and within countries, and blood shortage is acute in resource-constrained countries, including Gambia.
World Blood Donor Day is celebrated each year on June 14 to pay tribute to all unpaid voluntary donors for their gift while raising people's awareness on the importance of regular donations in order to secure high-quality blood and blood components for use in the healthcare system. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham. Now, in their effort to put an end to stigma and discrimination, albinos in Nigeria call for equal protection of basic human rights to be included in the country's constitution. In response, the Nigerian government took a bill to the National Assembly seeking to establish an agency that will promote the fundamental human rights of albinos. We have more of that in this report.
43-year-old Musa Bre is a politician aspiring for the position of councillor in the forthcoming local government elections in Plateau State, north central Nigeria. But he says finding acceptance among the people in his community has been challenging.
It has not been easy for me at all, because the people in my community, especially those of them that are the stakeholders, think I can't do it because of my condition. But the love that I have for the general population is pushing me, and I'm not going to give up.
Albinism is a rare, non-contagious, genetically inherited condition. People who are born with it often have permanent visual impairment and also face discrimination due to their skin color. The United Nations says albinos have been attacked and killed in 28 countries in Africa in the past decade. Nigeria is ranked as one of the countries with the highest number of albinos in the world, with an estimated 2 million people living with the condition. Activists at this albino foundation say the government has not done enough to help the community.
Persons with albinism, particularly in Nigeria, faces a lot of challenges. And the challenges are enormous because most of them are cultural beliefs, there are myths, and there are other sorts of challenges. The stigmatization, the marginalization has been so much because even in the workplace, you hardly see persons with albinism gainfully employed in offices. And the government has not made a deliberate attempt or provision to pave way for the employment of these persons with albinism.
Campaigners here are now pushing to ensure that persons with albinism get equal protection and basic human rights.
The government should give strict laws to enable persons with albinism also have jobs. Now that the constitutional review is going on, this should be included in the constitution so that it's a right for persons with albinism to also get such jobs. And there should be laws with health care. Persons with albinism also are exposed to things like skin cancer and visual impairment, and all this, they need to be included in the health sector, the health laws.
A bill for the establishment of an agency for albinism and hypopigmentation is currently on the floor of the National Assembly.
The government says the agency will be in charge of promoting access to education, health, employment, social rights and justice for persons living with albinism. It will also protect their fundamental human rights and promote freedom from stigmatization, prejudices and stereotypes.
Musa Bre and others with this condition hope the bill, if it is passed, will help reduce stigma and superstitious beliefs about albinos.
A plan to revive a stumbling campaign to get COVID-19 vaccines to developing countries get a crucial boost from U.S. plans to donate 500 million doses of the vaccine. Africa's top public health officials says 60% of the continent's population needs to be vaccinated against the coronavirus in the next 2 to 3 years. Details of that in this report.
As part of U.S. President Joe Biden's initiative to help vaccinate the world against COVID-19, Washington has promised to donate 500 million doses of vaccines to be shared between 100 countries around the world. And Africa, through the Africa CDC, is expected to significantly benefit from this donation.
Of the 500 million doses, 200 million will be available this year, and include the 92 countries or so that are in the advanced mechanism for COVID. And then the African Union has been explicitly mentioned in the communique, so we are very grateful for that.
It will be a Pfizer vaccine dose that the U.S. will send to Africa and the rest of the world through this initiative. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says due to the strict cold storage requirement for Pfizer vaccines, precautionary measures must be taken to ensure effective utilization of the dose.
You can use them easily in major cities where you have electricity and the minus 80s or 70s deep freezers. And those deep freezers do not cost excessively, they are not excessively expensive. With $10,000 to $12,000, you can get a minus 70 or 80 degrees, and that one of them can store up to about 300,000 doses of vaccine. So I think it's a question of having the vaccines in a timely and predictable manner. That way we can plan. Planning is key in any scale-up or vast vaccination program.
Africa has planned to vaccinate at least 60% of the 1.3 billion people in the continent to guarantee herd immunity against COVID-19. And the Africa CDC Director, Jordan Kengasong, says the U.S. vaccines donation will be instrumental in trying to achieve that goal.
We have to use a combination of vaccines to win this battle against the COVID-19. So if the Pfizer doses start coming in, our advice to member states will be to prioritize major cities. Then as other vaccines, Johnson & Johnson, start arriving, you can easily store them at ordinary refrigerator. You can expand them to the more challenging areas or remote areas.
Currently, Africa has faced significant vaccine shortages, making it a goal of winning the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic a much more difficult task. But the continent is hopeful that with its hundreds of millions of Johnson & Johnson vaccines orders in the pipeline and many more jobs from other sources such as the Chinese government donations, it will soon hit the 60% vaccination target.
Now, the effects of the coronavirus outbreak will prevent Muslims outside Saudi Arabia from observing the annual pilgrimage for the second time in a row. Custodians of the holy city of Mecca over the weekend announced the limiting of pilgrims to only 60,000 of its citizens. Details of that in this report.
Hajj is the fifth pillar of Islam, a fundamental practice at least once in a lifetime for Muslims, both young and old, in the holy city of Mecca. More than 2 million pilgrims visit the holiest sites of Islam in Mecca and Medina for the week-long Hajj every year. However, with the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, Saudi Arabia has put restrictions on the performance of Hajj in their kingdom. The kingdom barred foreign pilgrims from performing Hajj, restricting it to its citizens with a set maximum number of 60,000 pilgrims in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the kingdom's Ministry of Health, those who wish to perform this year's Hajj must be vaccinated, free from chronic diseases, and must be between the ages of 18 and 65. The kingdom reduced the number of pilgrims to about 1,000 Saudi citizens last year to help prevent the spread of the virus. According to official data, both the Umrah pilgrimage and Hajj used to earn the kingdom about $12 billion a year before the pandemic and forced social distancing globally. Saudi Arabia has so far recorded more than 463,000 coronavirus infections, with a total death toll of 7,526. This is what the kingdom wants to overcome by limiting pilgrims to its citizens only, as millions of pilgrims from around the world could be a major cause of coronavirus transmission. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
The Pan-African Parliament late last month failed in its bid to elect a new president and vice president after the parliament of the continental body descended into a fight as MPs argue over leadership voting and whether the presidency should be rotated by region. As featured in this report, Gambian lawmaker Honorable Alhaji Mbow shared with iAfrica TV on how the week-long debated over the election of their new president boiled over. More of that in this report by Binta Jallo.
After week-long debate over the leadership election, scuffles broke out at the Pan-African Parliament. The chaotic situation stemmed from disagreement among members of the House on whether or not to observe the policy of rotation in the elections. The session was expected to elect President and 5 Vice Presidents of the 6th Pan-African Parliament. Members of the Parliament rejected the report by the ad hoc committee that specified the need to go ahead with the elections of candidates. Debate in the House gradually became a tug of war in what appears to be Francophone-Anglophone role. The session became so disorganized, forcing the clerks to adjourn for a brief engagement with chairpersons of the various caucuses. Honorable Mbow is a Gambian representative at the Pan-African Parliament.
It was during the election for the president, that's when the chaos actually started at the Pan-African Parliament. So at this point in time, we could not do the elections, we had to suspend. And in fact, AU proposed that we suspend the session for a month and then come back and then continue. So, but the chaos was all about the election of the president of the Pan-African Parliament.
According to Honorable Mbow, the Pan-African Parliament is an organ of the African Union, but noted not all countries have ratified the protocol that empowers its operations.
We are supposed to be a parliament. At this point in time, we are just doing an advisory role to the AU because of some of countries actually are yet to ratify the protocol that would guarantee us full legislative body. Fortunately, the Gambia actually has signed years ago so that the Pan-African Parliament can be a full legislative body. So at this stage, we have only 16 countries that actually have signed, and we need about almost 12 more countries to sign the protocol, then it becomes effective. Now, this geographical rotation is actually contained in this protocol. So the protocol is not yet ratified because we have countries that are yet to sign the protocol and ratify in Parliament. So the laws that are in that particular protocol cannot be applied at this point in time. So what we have is we have something we call our rules of procedure. We really govern the way we do things. And our rules of procedure are actually very clear. It has not clearly spelled out that we have to do rotation, even though all of us actually have agreed that rotation is very necessary so that every region will have an opportunity to hold the presidency of the Pan-African Parliament, but it has not been codified into law.
To the Gambian lawmaker, Africans should graduate from the issue of Anglophone and Francophone division.
Really very interesting that in this African continent we still talk about this Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, Arabophone things, and I think these are the reasons why we are actually not progressing very fast as a continent. You know, the African people must move beyond these language barriers. We need to move beyond that. And I think in one of my interventions at the Pan-African Parliament, I said, I think it's about time the African continent come up with a language, African language, whether it's going to be Amharic, whether it's going to be Fula, or whether it's going to be Manding, whether it's going to be, any of the African or any other language that we can actually develop and nurture in the entire continent, in our schools. And what that's going to do is by the time we go 10, 15, 20 years, any country that you go through, those African languages, 2 or 3 or 4, can be spoken across the board.
The African Union adopted the rotational protocol in 2001, although the principle has wrongfully been applied by the Pan-African Parliament in the election of bureau members. An AU directive addressed to the PAP clerk indicated that the House must adhere to the principles of geographical rotation in the election of the 6th PAP leadership. The PAP will now elect new leadership in October. For iAfrican News, Binta Jallow.
In the report by our Binta Jallow on the chaotic election process that took place at the Pan-African Parliament, will take us to a short break, and we'll be right back with the rest of the news on the world today.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back, and this is still the World Today newscast. Now, the Alcalde of Welingara has, during the voter registration in his community, pledged defense for the country's electoral laws to the latter. Speaking to iAfrica TV at one of the registration centers on Monday, Sehundur warned that the national voters card must not land on any hands of ineligible people. The attestation from the village head, he says, is given in the place of other national documents needed as proof of citizenship. Fatoumata Katim has the rest of that.
Village heads known as alcalos are empowered by the 1997 Constitution to attest the citizenship of people who wish to obtain the voter's card in every election. The work with some of them has been flagged with claims of wrongdoing, such as the charging of fee for the issuance of their testimonies of citizenship. Preliminary statements by the CSO's coalition and election in the Gambia on Wednesday featured confirm of this allegation. The alleged selling of attestation, according to the coalition, happened in places such as Bundum. In reaction to this allegation, the Alcalde of Welingara associated himself from leaders of communities where the law is being compromised.
Well, it is not a right thing to be done. Certainly, we are here to work for the entire nation. If the Gambia is good, it's good for all of us. And if the country is bad, it's bad for all of us. We have the elders of yesterday have set a very good example in this country, and that's why Gambia is well known and respected throughout the world. I see no reason why youth of today should have another attitude, which is absolutely wrong. Let us follow and make sure that we follow the rules of this country, the laws of this country, the Constitution, and then work according to.
Meanwhile, the Independent Electoral Commission has so far issued 191,509 voters' cards, among which over 100,000 are female and more than 80,000 to male after 1 week of operation. Fatima B.C. Soho, one of the registrar for the voters' card, was encouraged with the turnout of the people of Welingara in 2021 electoral process. She had attended training on voter registration, from where she learned the rule of the game and serving as community advocate in the drive towards free, fair and transparent elections. Age being one of the eligibility criteria for the acquisition of the national voters card, communities are more awakened following the exposure of centers attempting to register even those yet to attain the age of 18. Fatima is one of the registrars, wearing an eagle eye to ensure a smooth and transparent voter registration.
They came, but they were not up to age because during our training for the IEC, they told us who can be registered. That is, those in school are going to be 18 on the day of election. That's going to be on the 4th of election or before the day of election. But we should be 18 by the 4th of December. So for me, whoever is going to be 18, even if it's going to be on the 5th, I don't think I ask them to go there and not up to, because their age is not going to be 18 on that day. Even this morning I had one of them, they explained to them they do quiet.
The agent for the United Democratic Party of the Welingara Voter Issuing Center, Khalilu Seidi, reiterated the need to take caution in the process. He expressed UDP's commitment to leave no stone unturned in making sure that only the right candidates are issued with the voter's card.
The only problem we have here is we saw non-Gambians being registered these 2 days, but we didn't have the power to stop it since our people are yet to arrive. We asked the returning officer to give us their details, but he refused, telling us to follow them to their houses. But we cannot do that. If not, we will cause commotion. That is why we want to go to the IEC for them to give us access to the information of the people who will be registered. In case we have doubt, we will do our own investigation.
The Election Act, as amended in 2001, provided that either a birth certificate, national identity card, passport, or an attestation from either village or district head must be presented for one to obtain the voter's card. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
Businesses in Ghana are booming despite the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The Ghanaian economy is on the road to recovery as the World Bank projected a 1.4% growth this year. And more of that in this report.
Business activities at this market in Accra are back to pre-pandemic level, according to traders here. All the shops have reopened after lockdown restrictions were eased, and Ghana's economy is beginning to recover from the disruptions caused by COVID-19. But analysts say it may take years for the economy to rebound fully.
These are early days for us to say Ghana's economy has recovered. As I predicted last year, it's going to take us between 3 to 5 years. The recovery is going to take the form of a U-shape, either than a V-shape. V-shape is normally when the economy falls, it bounces back to pre-COVID. But what we see in Ghana is that it's going to be U-shape. It's going to be gradual, and then it will pick up from where we were pre-COVID.
The World Bank has estimated the country's economy to grow by 1.4% this year.
Some sectors of Ghana's economy have been hit hard by COVID, and I can make mention of tourism. Once the inoculation goes on, the vaccination program is able to go on as effective as we wanted, then these sectors of the economy will be able to bounce back to lead to the full recovery that we want to achieve.
Ghana has so far inoculated nearly 900,000 people against COVID-19. It aims to vaccinate 20 million people by the end of the year.
But there are concerns that it may not be able to meet this target due to the global slump in supply of vaccines. Still, the government says it is working to get more vaccines under the WHO-backed COVAX Global Vaccine Sharing Initiative.
While the country rolls out its COVID-19 vaccines, experts are concerned about a threat of a third wave because many people have stopped wearing face masks and are not practicing other safety measures.
We have to balance the economic, social aspect with health. I understand that. And so the easy and the other thing had to be done one way or the other. But systems were supposed to have been in place, and that, unfortunately, are not being followed.
Analysts say the success of a vaccine rollout could help boost the economy. They want the government to step up efforts towards acquiring more COVID-19 vaccines to inoculate its people.
Now, the leader of the United Democratic Party, lawyer Usainu Dabo, says a UDP-led government will allocate 10% of the nation's budget to agriculture. Lawyer Dabo, who made the remarks in Badibunjaba on Saturday, says the move will help drive out the importation of rice into this country. Daisy has the rest of that story.
As the presidential election is fast approaching in the Gambia, political parties are crisscrossing the country to strengthen their support base. The United Democratic Party, one of the biggest political parties in the country, has over the weekend held a rally in Badibunjaba Kunda. Speaking at the rally, the Secretary General and party leader of the United Democratic Party, Usainu Dabo, said if his party comes into power, 10% of their budget will be allocated to agriculture.
If you give this country to UDP, what we're going to do is 10% of our budget, that is, in every 100, 10% of the budget will be taken and put into our agricultural business. And the issue of rice importation, we will try to stop it in this country, because as in every 2 years, the country will cultivate a certain ton of rice. So we do not import that ton of rice when we get that cultivated in the country. That is how we are going to do it until we stop the importation of rice in the coming 10 years.
The UDP leader also urged his party members to get their voters' cards in order to acquire the change they are yearning for.
We want to stop the way the country is going, and in doing so, we want to change the government. How can we do that? We can do that by getting our voters' cards, because we will not use axe, we will not use sticks to go and remove the president. We will change the government according to the law, and that is by using our votes. All these hypes you are doing, saying nothing will stop us from winning, indeed nothing will stop us from winning, if we get the votes. But if we don't get votes, then we will not win.
Agriculture is the most important sector in the Gambia economy and one of the priority areas of development, particularly in the new global climate of price escalation of staple food items. It accounts for approximately 1/4 of GDP and employs 75% of the labor force. Despite the fact that the country depends largely on the agricultural sector, much is still needed to improve growth and production of crops in the country. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
In that report by our Daisy on the UDP leader promising a 10% increment of the national budget on the country's agriculture if elected in 2021 brings us to the end of the World Today newscast. Up next is Gambia 24 News with Sohna Tunkara for more local stories. I am Mariama Cham. Thanks for your company and goodbye for now.